On a small island on the Seine, beneath Notre Dame's shadow, a pyre has been built. It is designed not for a quick death, but to burn slowly, to prolong the agony of the man chained to the stake. He is Jacques de Molay, a man of about 70, the 23rd and the final Grand Master of the Knights Templar. For nearly 7 years, he has endured imprisonment and horrific torture, even confessing to unspeakable heresies to make the pain stop. But now, facing the flames, he finds courage. With a voice that rings out over a silent crowd, he recants his confessions, proclaiming the Order's innocence and his own. His only crime, he shouts, was to betray his brothers with a lie to save himself from further torment. He issues one final chilling prophecy. He summons his persecutors, the powerful King Philip IV of France and Pope Clement V, to meet him before the judgment seat of God within a year. This was not merely the desperate cry of a dying man. In an age steeped in faith and fear, this public curse was a final brilliant act of political defiance. De Molay knew his life was over, but he could still fight for his order's legacy. By setting a divine deadline, he turned his execution into a trial of his accusers. If they died as he had predicted, it would be seen as God's own verdict, vindicating the Templars for all time and cementing their legend as martyrs. How did it come to this? How did an order of monks once hailed as the heroes of Christendom end their days condemned as heretics? To understand the end, we must go back to the beginning. Our story begins in the aftermath of the First Crusade. In 1099, Christian armies captured Jerusalem, and a wave of devout pilgrims began making the treacherous journey to the Holy Land. But while the city itself was secure, the roads to it were not. Bandits and marauders preyed on travelers, robbing and killing them with impunity. The new Crusader kingdoms simply lacked the forces to police these vital routes. Around the year 1119, a French knight named Hugues de Payen and 8 companions saw a solution. They approached Jerusalem's king, Baldwin II, with a radical proposal. They would form a new kind of order, a brotherhood of warrior monks that would take vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, and dedicate their lives to protecting the pilgrims. This was, in essence, a startup company solving a critical market need. The existing authorities couldn't provide security, so the Payen and his knights created a specialized non-profit security force. King Baldwin granted them headquarters in a wing of the Aqsa Mosque on the Temple Mount, a site the Crusaders called the Temple of Solomon. From this, they took their name, the poor fellow soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon. History would know them simply as the Knights Templar. Their early life was one of extreme austerity, governed by a strict Latin rule, approved at the Council of Troyes and championed by the famous abbot Bernard of Clairvaux. They woke before dawn for prayers, ate their meager meals in silence, and were forbidden worldly pleasures. They were monks with swords, embodying a new ideal of pious warfare. For a decade, the Templars remained a small dedicated band. The turning point came in 1129 at the Council of Troyes, where the Catholic Church officially recognized them as a holy order. 10 years later, in 1139, Pope Innocent II issued a papal bull called Omne Datum Optimum. This document was a game changer. It freed the Templars from many local laws and taxes, allowed them to build their own churches, and declared that they answered to no authority on earth except the Pope himself. In an instant, they became a sovereign power, a state within a state, with a direct line to the heart of Christendom. With the blessing of the Church, donations and recruits flooded in. The Templars built a formidable military machine, organized with a strict hierarchy from the Grand Master down to the sergeants. On the battlefield, they were legendary. Clad in their distinctive white mantles marked with the Red Cross, they were an elite shock force of crusades. Their code forbade them to retreat unless the odds were overwhelming, a rule that made them both fearless and terrifyingly effective. Their reputation was sealed at the Battle of Montgisard in 1177. A small Frankish force, including a contingent of Templars, routed a much larger army led by the great Muslim Sultan Saladin. While the numbers in medieval sources are likely inflated, the shock victory against a drastically outnumbered foe is undisputed. While individual knights took a vow of poverty, the order itself grew astonishingly wealthy. Kings, queens, and nobles across Europe donated vast tracts of land, castles, farms, and vineyards, hoping to aid the cause in the Holy Land. But the Templars' greatest innovation was not military, it was financial. They recognized that their military prowess created trust, and that trust could be monetized to serve their mission. Their network of fortified preceptories across Europe and the Holy Land was the most secure in the world. This allowed them to pioneer a system of international finance. A pilgrim in London could deposit their gold at the local Templar house and receive a coded letter of credit. They could then travel to Jerusalem, present the letter, and withdraw the equivalent sum minus a fee. It was a precursor to the modern traveler's check, an invention that made pilgrimage safer and the Templars indispensable. Soon they were among the primary bankers for the popes and kings of Europe, managing royal treasuries, brokering massive loans, and transferring funds for crusades. Their military and financial arms were two halves of a single, self-reinforcing engine. Their martial reputation guaranteed the security of their financial network, and the profits from that network funded their elite army. However, the very privilege that enabled this rise also made them politically isolated. They operated outside the laws of kings, a position that bred resentment and ultimately became their greatest vulnerability. By the end of the 13th century, the world had changed. In 1291, the city of Acre, the last Crusader stronghold in the Holy Land, fell to Muslim forces. The Templars' primary military mission was gone. They were a solution without a problem, yet they remained fabulously wealthy and powerful. This made them a target. The man who set his sights on them was King Philip IV of France. Known as Philip the Fair for his handsome features, he was a ruthless and ambitious monarch, determined to centralize power in France. He was also perpetually at war and in deep, crippling debts, including to the Templar order. In the Templars, Philip saw an opportunity to raise his debts and seize their assets in one swift, brutal move. To do this, he perfected the use of heresy as a political weapon. He launched a vicious propaganda campaign spreading lurid, fabricated rumors that the Templars were secretly devil worshippers who spat on the cross, engaged in alleged same-sex rites, and worshipped a demonic idol called Baphomet. He then used his immense influence over the French Pope Clement V to force the church to act. The trap was laid in absolute secrecy. On Philip's orders, sealed documents were sent to officials throughout the kingdom. At dawn on Friday, October 13, 1307, the order was given. In a single coordinated raid, hundreds of Templars across France were arrested, including the Grand Master Jacques de Molay. The surprise was absolute. What the torturers extracted would outlive the order. What followed was a campaign of systematic, state-sanctioned torture. Royal officials and inquisitors used the rack, the strappado, and fire to break the knights. Under unimaginable agony, men confessed to anything and everything their torturers demanded. Though Pope Clement later privately absolved the Templar leadership of heresy, a fact revealed by the discovery of the Chin on parchment in 2001, he was politically unable to publicly defy the French king and formally suppressed the order in 1312. The forced confessions provided Philip with the legal pretext he needed to destroy the order, and so we return to the pyre in Paris. As Jacques de Molay had prophesied, his accusers soon met their ends. Pope Clement V died from a disease on April 20, 1314. King Philip IV died on November 29th after suffering a stroke during a hunt. Over the next 14 years, his 3 sons reigned and died without leaving a male heir, ending his direct bloodline and helping to set the stage for their succession crisis that would lead to the 100 Years' War. The treasure wasn't gold, it was land and credit. The real legacy? A fusion of finance and steel, a monk's soldier order undone by a king's debts.